Sudan! Sudan, Andy, I mean, it's such a strong brand when it comes to human devastation.
Yeah, sure it is.
They're up there with
Market
the best. Well, that's right. In fact, I truly believe you could say that Sudan and Afghanistan really are the Coke and Pepsi of misery. But now, Sudan, Africa's biggest country and the one that has spent the last couple of decades attempting to become the dictionary definition of the word suffering, is considering splitting in two. Now, why do this? Is it because the country has become such a runaway success that the Monopolies and Mergers Commission have stepped in and told them to break up to encourage competition from other African states? Are they the Microsoft of sub-Saharan Africa? No. In fact, it's very nearly the exact opposite of that. And Andy, you know things must be bad, because their size was one of their main bragging rights. And now it looks like they're about to throw all of that away. Now, we're not the happiest country, nor the most stable, nor the richest, nor the healthiest, nor the safest, but we are the biggest. We're the Big Mac of Africa. And just like the Big Mac, you really don't want to pay too much attention to what's going on inside us.
Yeah, it's been an interesting few decades for Sudan, ever since they kicked us out, basically. Pretty much non-stop war, John, since 1955, the first Sudanese civil war. That was 55 to 72, solid 17-year job. Then the second Sudanese civil war, that was 83 to 2005. So that's, I don't know what they did in the 11 years in between. People just sat around twiddling their thumbs thinking, it just doesn't feel right. Who are we? We have no identity without a civil war. And also, that, of course, the Darfur conflict from 2003. So at one point, I mean, all of this certainly puts my dispute with the local council in Streatham about the spilt paint on the pavement outside our house into perspective. But
that's still bad. It's still bad, Andy. It's not a competition. That was still awful, awful event.
Two civil wars at once. That is impressive multitasking, though, if nothing else.
Yeah.
I mean, I can just about brush my teeth and hum Bon Jovi songs at the same time, and that's about it. Two civil wars on the go at the same time. That's awesome effort. That is an awesome effort.
So this major landmark vote, as you say, was actually conditioned of a 2005 deal to end almost 20 years of brutal conflict between the North and South. And you remember those conflicts. They were those conflicts that the world heroically tried to ignore, even when it seemed almost impossible. There were times when it didn't seem that you could turn a blind eye anymore, Andy, but it just goes to show what the human spirit is capable of when it's really determined not to pay attention to something. And the roots of the Sudanese conflict, just like the roots of so many conflicts in the world, are basically Britain's fault. It all comes back to us. We are the key ingredient in the root of so many recipes for unrest. Like the rest of Africa, Sudan's borders were drawn up by colonial powers with very little regard to cultural realities on the ground. The maps were often drawn by extremely drunk men who accidentally spilled either red wine, moustache wax, or both on the maps, then quickly drew lines around the mess before they missed their grouse shooting appointment. In fact,
it's easy to criticise with hindsight, John. But, I mean, have you ever had to draw up a country's borders amidst competing vested interests and a desire not to completely lose face politically? It is a f*** of a lot trickier than it looks.
I would love to, though. I feel like inherently my bloodline means that I would like to do it. In fact, you can trace almost any global conflict back to the roots of British imperialism. It's like playing 6 degrees of blame. It all boomerangs back to Blighty.
Yeah, they split. Sudan was made up of the north, mostly Arabic-speaking Muslims, and the south made up of various different ethnic groups, a lot of them are Christian or follow local traditional religions. And clearly, John, we Brits, we were merely trying to help Sudan diversify, have a thriving, culturally diverse culture, just helping people learn to live together by
melting pot,
forcing them to live together.
Yes.
I mean, what is that? Is that so wrong?
No, it's not wrong at all.
It's basically
Andy.
exactly what we did in Wales, but more so.
It feels so right. There's nothing that feels more right as a British person than when you're just looking over a big map with a pen in your hand and then just start scribbling. There's nothing that feels more natural. So what Sudan must do now is essentially navigate a national divorce. And this will come with all the complexities and the emotional minefields of any divorce. The North and the South are going to need to divide up their natural resources. They may want to spend, in fact, the next few weeks putting post-it notes on things that they each think are theirs. CDs, books, villages, oil fields, waffle pans, that kind of thing. And they also need to make it very clear to the central Sudan that it is not their fault. Now, the North and South still love you very, very much. It's just that we don't want to be together anymore. Maybe they'll maybe they'll have to try to arrange joint custody, where the centre of Sudan is with the south on weekends and holidays, and is with the north the rest of the time.
Well, that is basically happening. It's the region of Abyei is in the middle of Sudan, and how should they mark the South Sudan independence referendum? With an outburst of violence. So
yes,
and they are actually going to have a referendum. They were scheduled to have a referendum to decide whether to join the North or the South, and that has now been postponed indefinitely. So it is they will be basically handing over the people of Abyei a motorway service station on Sunday mornings, one week on, 1 week off.
And the context of that is that you probably just knows that the Abyei is an extremely oil-rich area. So that decision of where it's going to go is going to cause a great deal of pain to both the North and the South, who love it so much, Andy, it and its natural resources so deeply. No, I love Abyei so much. I've missed the little area terribly. The North has been so abusive of him, I'd be frightened to leave them alone together. I really don't think the North is a fit parent for my beautiful, oily boy.
In the south, there's the former rebels have been running the South Sudan since the peace accord of 2005, and they've been accused of. Let's make this a quiz. Have they been accused, these former rebels, of ploughing too much money into the arts? South Sudan now has more fringe theatres than any other country in the world.
It's possible.
Will they be accused of trying to raise living standards of the poor too quickly, causing people to become giddy and overexcited, thus damaging productivity?
That sounds good. Or
C, were they accused of wasting money from South Sudan's lucrative oil fields on military spending? Any guesses?
I'm going to go with A, Andy. Was it the arts funding?
It was not, sadly not. It was C, and today's prize, if you got that answer right, is a numbing sense of the inevitability of life.
Wow. That is a punchline, Andy. That is a punchline. Now, the truth is that it's going to be very hard to have anything resembling an amicable divorce when both parties have disputed ownership of massive oil reserves. The most likely outcome is that they both need to hire expensive celebrity divorce lawyers, because both sides have some pretty nasty shit on the other side that neither would like to see come out in court. Do you want me to tell them about that night that you massacred 120,000 villagers? I didn't think so. I'll have the oil-filled alternate Christmases, shall I?
Well, the good thing is that as a result of this, the Sudan could be off the American list of terrorist states as soon as July. And in an article on Reuters by the world's greatest living journalist, that is, if your only criterion for judging how great journalists are is by how incredible their names are, this article was written by Ophira Mukdoom. So you can see my point.
Wow.
That's
I tell you what,
isn't it?
You really gave that a big build-up, and I was thinking, this can only be a disappointment. And then it was even better than you claimed it would be.
Anyway, Ophira Mukdoom reported that if the referendum results are accepted peacefully by both sides, then Sudan will be officially moved onto the not that naughty anymore list. It's been on the terrorist list since 1993 for harbouring real dickbags like Carlos the Jackal and Osama bin Laden. But it could soon follow Libya down that familiar path from nasty terrorists to oil-rich trade partner. And that is a key. It's such a fine line. It is such a fine line.
Another twist to this story is that only Southerners are eligible to take part in this poll, which means that the result is almost certain to be in favour of independence. Voting will last for 7 days to allow everyone to vote, and assuming that the verdict is to secede, Africa's newest country will come into being on the 9th of July 2011 and will be the world's 193rd country. We're so tantalisingly close to the 200th country, and it's almost worth destabilising a few more African countries just to go for the record. Ivory Coast looks like it might go any second. Tunisia's wobbling. We might not be that far away.
Yeah, so a new country could come into being. That's, of course, very exciting news for quiz fans. A new capital city to learn. I mean, that's as good as it gets, right? And also, they've held a competition to choose a new national anthem, which is a great idea. I think it might have been good had we done the same here in the UK. It might have got something better than the tuneless dirge about a made-up magician saving a basically pretend woman. And you do have to, has God ever actually saved the Queen? There's no evidence that he has. And I mean, I assume that if he's as fair as he makes out in the Bible, he will judge all instances wherein Her Majesty is in need of saving on a case-by-case basis. I mean, he has done quite a good job at saving her, to be fair, but whether the song's got anything to do with that, we don't know. It certainly did not work for her daddy, the previous king, who popped his golden royal clogs sometime in his 50s, I think. So, well, no, it is a great national embarrassment, the British national anthem. Of course, most national anthems are just fairly basic threats to try and kill as many people as possible from other places.
Yeah.
And that might not be ideal for a country emerging from the wreckage of 5 decades of conflict. But, so they got 49 poets to combine to write the lyrics for this song. 49... I didn't know there were 49 poets in the world.
Yeah, I guess they use all of them.
Yeah, I must have just got all poets. Amongst the lyrics in the national anthem are claiming that South Sudan is the origin of world civilization. I think you'll find that was actually Britain. And they also urge peace, liberty and justice to reign forevermore. Well, let's hope so. I mean, to be fair, peace, liberty and justice are quite out of practice in that part of the world. But good luck to them. And they end by saying, Lord bless South Sudan. And then presumably they finish with an action of tapping their watches, saying, go on, Lord, bless South Sudan. Bless it. It's about f***ing time you blessed it.
So they did. It was very intriguing the way they went about it. It was almost in X Factor style, that they gave large groups of singers and bands the same lyrics, got them to write an anthem, and then had a live audience vote for the winner. And the bar was not particularly high, because this was the old Sudanese national anthem. Let me just bring this up here. This was actually it. Now, while you're listening to this as well, you should know this is not just a terrible version. This is how it was supposed to be played, on a miniature electronic keyboard set to organ mode. The only variable was that you could add a bossa nova beat depending on the occasion.
Is John playing this live?
That was it.
That's awesome. Presumably that was written in order to try and calm down civil wars. You have a bit of silly music in the background. Almost Benny Hill style. Just get everyone to run around with no clothes on instead.
So now they do have their new national anthem, as you say, with inspirational lyrics. I'm guessing this means that they did not go with Sir Mix-a-Lot's entry, Sudan got back, and in brackets him making it clear that by back he meant a long and painful history. So, you know, what will life be like for the new country of South Sudan, or whatever it calls itself? There are also some potential names to consider. 1, Turbo Sudan. 2, that country to the east of Chad. 3, Hogwarts, you know, that's popular. And 4, George Clooney, as a thank you for all the work he's done there, and a way to appear significantly more handsome. But it won't be easy. Now, the new country has hardly any roads and nowhere near enough schools and hospitals for its population of 8 million. They do have a lot of oil fields, so, well, actually, they do have a lot of oil fields. Maybe they should bid to host the next World Cup, Andy. that would certainly put them on the map. In fact, largely thanks to the massive amount of wars they've had over the last 20 years, Southern Sudan will start off life as one of the very poorest nations on the planet. But that's just the kind of story that America loves. You know, the rags to slightly more rags story that captures the hearts of the Western world.
It seems that the referendum lasts a week of voting, and they had to pass a 60% threshold, which has been passed for it to be valid. I think this is a great idea to have a very long election and one with a threshold below which the turnout doesn't count, basically. And I think all general elections and presidential elections around the world, they should set a threshold very high, maybe 95%. And until that's passed, then voting just continues indefinitely. And this will still lead to one-day elections because people will just be simply so desperate for the TV coverage to end. So we essentially have the same system but with a higher turnout. They're visionaries, these people. Visionaries.